Today, my guest is Julie Kraus. Now, Julie, you've seen her with us in a lot of our videos, but I never really got a chance to sit down and talk to Julie about her beginnings and what her psychic mediumship means and how she has connected with so many people through this incredible gift. So today we're going to talk with Julie Kraus right here on Eric Mintel Investigates the Interviews. As promised, here she is, ladies and gentlemen, Julie Kraus. Hey, Julie, how are you?
Hi, good. Thank you for having me. I love spending time with you and your team, Eric.
No, well, we do too. Same here, and you've been on a lot of the investigations with us, and it's like, it's been phenomenal, number one. And I always like it just fascinates me that you tune in on so many different things that are going on there, even more than what we already know. So but why I wanted to do this interview today is because it's great. I love having you on the videos, but it's nice to know a little bit of your background, your backstory. And what I always like to ask my guests is, and now that you being a psychic medium, it's different for me to say if it's a writer or something like that, to say, hey, what was the fire in the belly that got you to be a writer? But as a psychic medium, when did you, I guess, when was that epiphany, or when did that enlightenment happen in your life?
I was young. I was about, I would say, 9 years old when we had some of our loved ones from our family pass on to the other side. And they started to come to me in dreams. And I would wake up and go down to my dad getting ready for work. And I would pass on these messages, and he'd be like, "What? How do you know this? You're too young to know the information." But my grandmother had this gift, and her grandmother had the gift.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so my grandmother was actually a professional tarot card reader and dream interpreter.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So she taught me a lot of that kind of stuff, and she got me into crystals, and she actually was an astrologer as well. So right. And then her grandmother, they just called her a healer because they didn't know, truly what the words were for it. They just knew that she could quote unquote heal. So when I was young, we kind of connected the dots, and my grandmother, because she was connected to all of this, she just knew that I had a higher sense of intuition. And so I worked with that. I worked with her for a little while, and then I pushed it away. I started to push it away in my, I would say, late teens and early 20s for a decade.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for our viewers that are listening to this, can you just tell them real quick, you're a psychic medium. So what is the difference between a psychic medium and a spirit medium?
So a psychic medium is someone who can perceive your energy. So Eric, I could look at you and I could read your past, your present, and your future energy. Now, the future energy is about 80% on point because I look at where your energy is aligned and what is coming in your bestest and highest good of what you are pulling in for you. But if you get a wild hair up your butt and make a left turn, you can totally
Yeah.
push yourself off that track. So that's a psychic. And then a medium is someone who can speak with our loved ones on the other side, and spirit guides and angels. And what they do, what I do, is I raise my frequency of my energy and call on the loved ones on the other side. They bring their energy down, and we meet in the middle. And that's why we're called a medium.
Wow. That's amazing. And it's funny because people don't know that. People don't know, they only have one perception of what a medium is or a psychic. So there's many different layers to the story, and it's all individual too. It's individual, like you're going to bring something different to the table rather than say Dominic would, or anybody else. So I know you have a lot of clients and you have a lot of people that you've really helped over the years. And that's got to be not only satisfying, but for them, it's got to be like you're kind of giving them a sense of hope, and a sense of healing, really.
I find that people leave my sessions feeling relief and comfort, enlightened, and like they got an energetic upgrade because now they have new information. They feel as though that their heart feels better. And they know kind of what's out there more than what they have ever perceived themselves, which is really cool. So I kind of give them a glance into the other side or into what working with energy is like, which is neat.
I love it. You know,
Yeah.
being on a lot of the investigations, like ladies and gentlemen, Julie's been on about, I guess the very first one that you came on the investigation with us was
I think it was the water wheel.
it was the Water Wheel. That's right. We did the Water Wheel Tavern in Doylestown, and you picked up on a lot of really crazy energies there. And later on that night, because you left, and then later on that night, we caught all kinds of orb activity right there at that stairway where you were standing, and where a lot of people have been seeing all kinds of weird activity and feeling all kinds of weird stuff there. So when you go into a location, you know, and I always like to say this too, that you're giving us kind of like a preview of what we're in store for, you know, so to speak. But when you go into a location, not with us or just any location, say you're going into like I don't know, like an antique store or even like a supermarket, do you ever get things like people's energies bouncing off of you? Like, do you feel like it's like a ping pong effect?
Yes, I do. Sometimes I just say spirit not today. And
Kind of
I'll
shut
just
it off.
no, I'll shut down. But if there's a spirit on the other side that really wants to give a message, they will make it known to the point where I cannot deny it and I can't push the message away. But when I walk into an antique store or a thrift store, that is really hard for me because there's so much energy there. Not even attachments or ghosts connected to the items, but also just the items in people's homes pick up that
Right.
home's energy or the family's energy. So those are really tough for me. I don't love going in those types of stores. But yeah, if I walk past, someone in a supermarket and I feel something creepy, I'll feel it. Or um, just the other day, I hate to say this, but the other day I saw in someone's aura that they didn't have too much time to live. That type of stuff that can happen.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's got to be exhausting too sometimes, I would think.
It can be exhausting when I don't listen to my intuitive rhythm with work.
Mm.
So if I just, and it's hard for me because I love what I do. And so if I feel as though that I have enough on my plate, but then I get offers and I'll just be like, sure. And it will be 2 months down the road. And then when the time comes, I'm just like, bam, 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 doing all this stuff. I get very tired.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like my energy is outside of myself.
Hmm.
It feels very thin. And I ask my husband, Mike, to rub my legs. I lay down and he rubs my legs, and it kind of pulls my energy back in and it grounds me.
Huh.
Eating a lot of ground beef and staying in nature does it too. It like pulls me back in.
Interesting.
And I have to do a lot of play as well because, when you work with so many grieving people, or so many let's say ghosts that don't know where they are and what they're doing, that can really kind of weigh on me, so I have to try
Oh,
to,
sure.
to be that center point. So I have to just be very tuned in and aware to myself.
And we should also say too, prior to, well, this has always been part of your life, but you were also a personal trainer too at one point, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that, I mean, that probably feeds into the physicality of what you do as well, in order to have the stamina, to do that. Because you talk about a little bit of that
Sure. Well, I want to rewind and say that's when I pushed my intuition away.
when you became
So, yeah, during my personal training time. So when I was probably around 18 to 28 years old, I really pushed my intuition away. And it was because I was feeling, when I was a teenager, I was feeling so many people's emotions and energy. I didn't fully understand it or know what to do with it.
wow.
So I used exercise as a way to push other people's energy out and away from me.
Mhm.
So I was so in my body and I turned my intuition off.
Mm.
And I wound up opening up a gym for almost 6 years. And that was my life. I mean, I didn't really have time to work with my intuition. And I was noticing that when I was personal training people, they weren't fully getting the results that they were looking for. And I was like, I'm educated, I'm certified in nutrition, I know what's going on. And I was very frustrated. And I realized, wait, it doesn't matter how much someone eats chicken and broccoli and squats. If they're unmotivated to do it,
Yeah,
they're not going to do it. And so I
exactly.
realized, yeah, I realized that so many people were dealing with anxiety or grief or other emotions that were blocking them from wanting to take care of themselves.
Mhm.
So I went to life coaching school, and there it taught me how to balance the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual realm. And when it brought through the spiritual realm again, I had to put myself through the life coaching school too. So I had to practice everything.
Wow.
That's when it reactivated my intuition. And so when I was taking everything that I learned from life coaching school and bringing it to personal training, people were getting results, but they also, I was noticing their energy. I was noticing their loved ones. And I'm like, wait a second, what is going on?
God.
And then that made me tap into my intuition and say, wait, I am off track with the gym. I actually want to do more of the spiritual.
Mm.
And what my guides push me a lot into doing is to exercise and eat sunlight.
Mm.
So they say sunlight, which is fruits and vegetables, that is of the light, that helps attract lighter vibrational energy so it can clear up and be a good channel for my intuition to work.
Wow.
So I have to work out to push out other people's energy, but then when I eat well, I can read better. And it's been a fascinating ride and journey to figure that out.
Wow. And that's been how long have you gone from that to this point? How long has it been?
So it's been 8 years. So
Wow.
I did all of that for a full year before I closed the gym. So 8 years.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and having that that light bulb go off. Let me ask you this. What are your guides? Like when people hear that, like, and I'm sure that people have different spiritual guides, but what would you define as your spiritual guides, if that's even explainable?
So we all have spirit guides. We're born with 1 to 2 spirit guides. They're there with us from birth until death. Usually they have been incarnated with us in a different lifetime.
Hmm.
And they said, hey, listen, I am going to be your guide, your protector, your helper. So you're going to incarnate, and I'm going to be in spirit helping you. And so we create a contract with them. So they are there for us to give us synchronicities, give us breadcrumbs to let us know that we're on track or not on track. And they are sitting there patiently twiddling their thumbs, waiting for us to talk to them. They
Mm.
want us to use them. They want us to ask them to tell us if we're on the right track. So we have those guides. We also have a guardian angel and or more angels.
Mhm.
Angels have never been incarnated here on earth before. And then we also have transition guides. So transition guides are, let's say, Eric, if you picked up a new project, you would probably get a new transition guide to work with you throughout that project. So it could be a career change, it could be a new romantic relationship, it could be health. And once they feel as though that they've done their duty and their job, then they leave again. So, and spirit guides can come in so many different forms. They can come in the form of they may look like a human being, they may look like galactic, they might be a light being. So they come in all different types of ways. It's really fascinating.
It's really cool. You know,
Hmm.
and that's something I think that isn't really talked about too much, that people talk about that, but so the spirit guides themselves, it's fascinating. Could they be, are they family members? Are they, or they're just other people that are just
So
designated maybe to help you or that other person?
right. So your spirit guide is not someone that you are incarnated with during this lifetime. So it's not like my grandmother taught me everything and she passed away and now she's my spirit guide. She's not my spirit guide, but she can guide me in spirit. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
she
yeah.
could,
Yep.
yeah, she could show up and just show me and send me her love and let me know that she's there. But our spirit guide, usually we may have been incarnated with them in our past lives.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and sometimes not, but sometimes.
I just go back to this, and I always think of this story with this with my own guardian angel story that I thought, this incident happened. I think I told you about this with this woman in the woods, and this like I mean, it was just insane. And when this lady in white takes this deer, this 200-pound deer by the ear and just like pulls it off. I mean, this was an entity. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't anything like that because it was a solid form. But I always thought, this is, and she's saying, get off the road, get in and get in your car, get off the road, wanting me to be safe. I always thought to myself, could that be, my guardian angel? And then later on, come to find out, there is a lady in white that has been seen in Bucks County. So, and my father had an experience early on too. So, I've never been one to, like you and Dominic, it always fascinates me that you guys go into these places and you're immediately feeling all this great energy. Well, not great energy, it could be bad energy or whatever, but you're feeling these energetic areas that we're going into, and then a story starts unfolding from there. I don't, with the exception of the one room in that Vampa museum, I do have that I don't really feel that, but in that place I do. But maybe talk about that a little bit. When you go into a location that way, what is the first thing that kind of like sets you off in that saying, "Oh, there's something here." What is like, is there something like knocking or what's getting your attention?
I first get physical sensations. So the physical sensations I will get are chills,
Okay.
or I'll get a zinger up my spine. Usually when I get zingers and
Mm-hmm.
it, it makes me contort my body and it's a very fast twitch. That means that the energy is very misaligned. And sometimes if I twitch a lot, and you'll see it it really means that there's something big energy, something's not right. But when I get chills, usually I'll just be like, okay, there's spirit here.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes I will get either upset in my stomach, or I'll feel off kilter, like I'm on a boat or something, or my head. That all happened around the Vampa Museum. That's usually when there's just wonky energy. That happens also to me in antique stores a lot. But like at the restaurants that we will go to, or the train station or whatever, I just get the chills. And then what follows is a knowing of what's going on, or I may hear it, or I may see it in my third eye. So sometimes I can smell it and taste it as well. So
Wow.
it usually plays out as my senses are being massaged a lot of times all at the same time. But the very first thing that I feel is those chills or that twist.
Well, that was and at the Vampa Museum premiere when we premiered the video. I know
Yeah.
that night, right after the video, you completely I mean, all of us were shocked with what happened. And I know that you just were like, startled, not only because of what we heard, but you even got that feeling before that.
Yep.
You
Yeah. So we were doing our Q&A,
Right.
and I was focusing on something, and all of a sudden I got this bad, like, whip of a feeling, and I cocked really hard, really, really fast.
Right.
And when that happens, I'm like, oh no. And as soon as I said, oh no, that's when we heard everything.
Oh yeah.
It wouldn't have been, there was no way that I would have had the feeling and then have been able to stop anything. It was just that quick.
It was that quick. I know you wanted everybody out of there too, because we were trying to, like we were trying to wrap our heads around what was going on. And we see you on the video. We needed everybody out of there. So we finally got out of there from the barn, went over to the museum. But what a crazy night. I mean, and this stuff, I mean, when I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this stuff happens, it happens. It's real time stuff. And that's one of the things that I like about what we do, and well, I love about what we do, is that we're all about truth-based investigating. And, when we go into these places, and I've said it before too, I go into these very skeptically sometimes because I really want to know what's going on there. What are people, experiencing there? But like I've always said before, it's like, having said that and having captured what we've captured on camera, there's a real thin veil and that people are experiencing these things. And at the end of the day, they're seeing something. Um, Let me ask you this. Do you think with the spiritual realm and even with like just the ghosts, UFOs and Bigfoot, things like that, do you think it could be a generational thing? Have you had clients have, you know, other family members, well, like yourself. I mean, you're in that predicament where your whole family has had some kind of that paranormal or that extrasensory perceptions. Have you found that with other clients too?
Absolutely. I've found that with people who are more intuitive and have that psychic medium sense, but I've also noticed it with um, the galactic energy. I've noticed that the galactic energy stays within family lines as well, a lot.
So universal energy, are we talking like
Um,
alien abduction, that kind of thing?
yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
They usually stay in family, like family lineage.
When I at first when I talked we were talking about like I've talked to, I've interviewed witnesses that have had alien abductions and I believe them. I think in the cases that you look back on, I think there's probably a good handful of cases that you could say there is something that definitely happened to these people. I mean, you go back to Betty and Barney Hill,
Mm.
Travis Walton, missing for 5 days and then returned. Carl Higdon in Wyoming, being again brought back out of this and being dropped. Travis Walton being dropped on the ground, Carl being dropped on the ground. Betty and Barney Hill were dragged into the ship. So a lot of these and the Allagash abductions, these guys in at the Allagash waterways in New England, and I think it was from Maine, and they were night fishing, and all of a sudden they see this huge orb of light, and before you knew it they were in the canoe and they were trying to get back to the shore, and a light came down on them, and then they had missing time, and then right after that they found themselves on the shore looking at this orb as it was floating away slowly, and then but then repressed memories come in and they found out they had been abducted. When you're talking about intergenerational families and things like that with this abduction experience, have you ever, not to, the client, confidentiality, have you ever run into people that have claimed that? And
Mhm.
have you tried to help them? And how do you go about that? I mean, how do you go about, you know, uh, going in that direction?
Sure. For me, it's the same thing as tapping into a loved one on the other side. It's energy. So I'm able to tap into I'm able to perceive their past, their present, and their future. So I can perceive what has happened. And it's just like how I would tap into a ghost energy or a loved one on the other side. It's just a small shift and it's an asking and they speak back.
Mm,
Um, so it's really interesting. I enjoy working with that energy. I really do. Um, a lot of people are scared of the galactic energy, and I think that there are positives and negatives of every energy out there.
mm,
So it's kind of like instead of sitting in that fear base, how can we look at it of how are they helping and
right.
what are they doing with us and for us type. That's the way that I choose to sit in this energy because it allows me to move forward with learning more.
Right. I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, and it's also got to be frightening for those people too, because they don't really sometimes maybe not know who to turn to. And thank God they found you to be able to, get some kind of like closure on whatever it is that they're experiencing. Um, Are you do you ever do hypnosis, or you're not certified in that, or?
I don't do hypnosis. No, I tap into their energy and I tell them what's going on rather than the other way around.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I mean, the whole thing is amazing. I mean, and the alien abduction, I mean, that's another avenue that we're looking into, and the missing time aspect of these things, because there's a lot more going on in that realm that's being told about or talked about right now. So that's one of the things that we're looking into. I also wanted to ask you too. Now, you just told me, which I have to mention this in this interview, that you were out with a friend the other day and you had heard some whoops in Pennypack Park. And
Yeah.
explain it. And what do you think that was? Because I have a theory, because Tom Carey and we did a video called The Beast of Bryn Athyn. Now, down in that area in Pennypack Park is an area that this dogman creature has been seen. So I'm wondering if that's kind of like what you heard. I don't know, you know. But we had witnesses that had compelling, sightings, and it's just been burned in their memory of what they saw.
That's crazy. I learned about the whoops from your video. What was the video with you and Dominic and another man who was
Oh
had
yeah,
cancer?
that was
And they,
Art. Yeah,
what was it?
that was Art, and his name was Art, and that was the Bigfoot in the New Jersey Pine Barrens.
Yes, so
Yep.
I had watched that video and it was really interesting to me, and I did not know that Bigfoot Sasquatch would whoop.
Yeah.
Um, and I started to hear, we were walking and just gabbing along, two women, and all of a sudden we heard two whoops. And it was, well, she heard one, I heard two,
Hmm.
but it was very loud. It was, and I was like, did you hear that, Eric? It was had made a video about Sasquatch and whooping, and it didn't
Yeah.
really sound like a person would have done it.
Did you
Um,
did you by chance happen to look up into the trees at all?
no, I didn't like look up and around, but it where it came from was on the other side of the creek.
Wow.
So yeah, because I could hear it was a distance away, but it was loud.
Well,
Yeah.
Julie, I'll tell you what, in the last couple of minutes here, what else do you have coming up? Do you have any workshops coming up for people that you could talk about?
I have a program called Become coming out, which is teaching people how to become spiritual advisors and tap into their psychic abilities. And I also have our Sacred Space, which is an online community site for people with open hearts and minds looking to build on their intuition.
Love it. This is
So
great. Well, I'll tell you what, you're doing some incredible work. So keep
thank you.
keep doing what you're doing. The world needs you. So,
Oh,
and your husband Mike's such a phenomenal guy. And your kids there. So you guys really just, be safe. And we're definitely going to see you on the next investigation, on one of these next investigations. So, uh,
cool.
we've always got something going on, as you know.
Yeah, I'm in. Thank you, Eric.
All right, Julie. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you, Julie, so much for being here. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. A lot more guests coming up this season on Eric Mintel Investigates, the interviews. So thank you again. Have a great night.